Welcome back to Hall of Fame College Football Livestream. I'm your host, Jason Watkins. I have special guests from Lonestar College Football, Mr. Logan Patterson, Mr. Christian Harrington. Gentlemen, how are we tonight?
Doing good. Just got off work, ready to talk some ball.
Oh yeah,
Talking some ball. And you guys know that I had Greg Swaim on last night. And if you don't know Greg, he's a well of information for Big 12 football. We were talking we were supposed to be just talking about this conference realignment stuff. Colorado coming in, possibly Arizona, could be soon. Looking like that's probably the case. We may jump into that a little bit. But, Swain likes to tell old stories and relive Okie-like glory days of the past, So I kind of let him go with some of that. It was fun. But I thought it was one of the things that was interesting to me. And welcome into the show, everybody. If you have not become a subscriber, please hit that button and the like button as well. That is so important for us content creators. You can find the Lone Star Boys here, as you can see on Christian's name. It's at Lonestar_CFB. That's on Twitter and here in YouTube as well. But as I said, Swin likes to talk about all those. He just tells a lot of old stories, so he's a lot of fun to hang around with and stuff. But at some point yesterday, in the midst of all this Colorado, Arizona, Pac-12 falling off the cliff conversation, he came to this. Can Oklahoma and Texas compete in this new SEC conference starting next season? Can they compete? I'm going to ask you that question first, Christian. What do you think, man? I mean, it's obviously the recruiting stuff has been good for a while, but where do you think it goes once it turns 2024?
Here's the thing. When A&M first went, I thought there was no chance that they ever did anything. I mean, 6-6 was going to be their highlight. I think they got lucky getting Johnny Manziel. Kevin Sumlin turns out to be pretty much Jimbo Fisher 1.0. Maybe even a little better now.
Better than Jimbo. I don't know.
Right. And so I kind of look at A&M and I wonder what they'd be if they didn't get Johnny Manziel. Is that kind of a springboard that allowed them to get some momentum? And I look at the Texas roster. I look at our quarterback situation with Quinn, Malik, and Arch. Now, hopefully Quinn has a season that doesn't make him come back. Because if he does have a season where he's got to come back, then we're probably in some trouble. Yeah, I think Texas and Oklahoma can compete. I think it helps us that the first year we're going is going to be the first year of a 12-team playoff. So that helps us kind of soften the blow of if we do have 3 losses. Technically, there's still a chance that we get a postseason. As much as I know, both of us were kind of hoping for that.
2 losses are probably going to be most of at the start. Probably, I think at some point maybe.
Are there 12 teams though that only have 2 losses? Like, is it usually the top 12? Is it usually just a bunch of 2-loss teams? I feel like there's got to be a couple, especially an SEC 3-loss team. They just get valued so much higher than.
I think there's the thought process behind it, right?
Right.
Yeah, I'd say that's the thought process behind it. Is that you expect that? That's where I was going with it. I don't know that it happens in the first year or two. I think you're probably looking at a situation where you'll probably get some other of those conferences that they're going to still maybe overvalue a little bit, like the ACC.
Yeah.
I mean, and we should probably get into talking about this in a few minutes, but when you start looking at Clemson, they're not going away on this recruiting trail. They just picked up Brian Wesco. They just picked up Sammy Brown, and they've got Lincoln Riley's little brother who coached in the national championship game. Well, at least he was there last season for TCU.
Was he? Were they there?
Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he slipped and fell in the locker room and didn't get up. I don't know.
I think he was at his interview for the new job on that day. I don't know if
it's possible. There. I think you could be right there. You could be right. But I do feel like I definitely feel like you already get the lion's share of SEC, they generally get 2 in now in the 14 playoffs. So, last year being a bit of an anomaly.
Yeah.
And I think it's because they kind of beat up on each other. Do you see that kind of being what's going to happen when these two new teams enter the league? Because if that's what we're talking about, I can kind of see what you're talking about. Are they going to continue to beat each other up? So you're going to have some 2 and 3 loss teams that maybe they beat up on each other. And so you end up with 3 minimum, maybe 4 even some years, I would think.
Texas really can't afford that because we have Michigan in week 1, and we've got home and homes with Michigan and Ohio State for the next 4 years after the 2023 season. So we're kind of in a situation where, as much as I love big programs that will schedule big games, it definitely seems like a scheduling ahead is going to hurt us. But, Texas, like Logan said before we got on, Texas does seem to generally show up for bigger games. And we kind of play down the competition sometimes, which is probably the most frustrating thing as a Longhorn fan that I could ever think about. I think both teams are in a prime position because of the quarterback situation. Jackson Arnold, I personally, and maybe, let me know how the Oklahoma fan base feels. I personally think Jackson Arnold could be the starter by the end of the season because we've talked about it on your show. I think you've came on ours and we talked about it. Dylan Gabriel against Power 5 teams, not great. Not great at all.
Lord. Here we go.
I'm just saying.
Stupid narrative.
I'm just saying. Well, hey, I think it's a fair narrative. I mean,
good. It's messing up his video. It's messing up his sound. Look at that. Look at that. His sound's all jacked up. Why don't you take over for him there, Logan? I'll beat up you for a second after you get done.
Beat me up. I'll be just in here minding my business.
Okay. You've been in on that same narrative as Christian for a long time.
I haven't talked about that in a while. I don't remember the stats. I think he has a losing record against
Jason, you just have to tell me I'm wrong. That's all you got to do.
No, you got a little muffled and muted, and you're still frozen. So yeah,
Well, I'll start back to the original question. Do I think that Oklahoma and Texas can come in and compete? I think, like what I said before, Texas plays up and plays down to everybody. We've seen that the past couple of years against teams that they shouldn't have, like Tech the past year, Kansas the year before. And just it's been like that for the past couple of years. Now, Oklahoma, y'all had a rough season last year.
Keep going. Keep going, bro.
Oklahoma, y'all had a rough season last year, but y'all had a first-year head coach. So for me, it comes down to how this year plays out. If it's anything like Dave Aranda's second year, how Matt Rule's second year was at Baylor, and how Steve Sarkisian's was his second year last year?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it just depends on how BV's second year goes for me to be able to put it together to know how it'll go against SEC teams.
Right. And listen, and I mean I've heard this whole, that Dylan Gabriel isn't the guy, and against Power 5 teams, blah blah blah. You realize that most of those losses were this past season, and with the 124th ranked defense in the country out of 131. So I mean, we can continue talking about that if you'd like to. The truth of it is it as big of an issue in most of the fans of. Or most of the vision of the fans of Oklahoma is whether or not can he get this done or not. I don't know, and I think that Dylan is okay. I don't think that there's he's not Caleb Williams by any stretch. He's not Caleb.
Dylan is okay. I'm not saying Dylan is bad.
Go ahead.
Are we losing him?
I think we're losing you. Are you there?
I'm not saying that Dylan Gabriel is bad. I'm just saying Jackson Arnold is the guy that it seems he is. I don't know. Am I lagging?
You're lagging. You're lagging quite a bit, bro. But I think I'm getting, so you're asking, is Jackson Arnold good enough to come in, be the starter right now, even over Dillon Gabriel? I think that's a fair question. And it is a fair question. But what I would tell you is that if, just like, I don't think that you guys wanted to have, I mean, and I think it was pretty clear that Arch Manning is not ready to start now. But would you, even if you thought that he maybe could start, he was close, would you want him to have to go in and start immediately for Texas whenever you've got a guy that's a veteran that's been through it a little bit now that you expect could play pretty well? If the defense is a little better, they should be fine. You know what I mean? And I think that that's where most Oklahoma fans are. Nobody's calling him. Nobody is calling Dillon Gabriel Caleb Williams. Nobody is. Nobody's calling him Baker Mayfield. Nobody's calling him Kyler Murray. It's just, that's not what we're talking about. But you know, it's rare that freshmen are able to come in and have the kind of season where, if you feel like you're competing for a conference championship, you probably don't want to have a freshman quarterback at the helm.
Sounds familiar.
Right? It sounds familiar. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that y'all are in a little bit better spot than Baylor is by a decent bit, but it's like the same situation, just different skill gaps.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because, like, we gave Gary Bohannon the nod during 2021 to take us to what would have been a Big 12 championship. But then he got hurt, as everybody knows. Blake Shapen comes in, plays stupid out of his mind, and wins the Big 12 championship, and then turn around in the offseason. Let Gary go off to USF. That way he can play somewhere his last year of eligibility. Right. Turn around, let Blake come in. Has an okay season, but after he got hurt against West Virginia, he was making bad reads, bad throws. The ball wasn't a tight spiral. And now we bring in Sawyer Robertson, a redshirt freshman from Mississippi State, to compete, to push Blake. And some Baylor fans are calling for Blake to be gone, which I've been there and I've thought about it and I've gone back and forth.
You're one of them.
No,
I was going to say, aren't you one of those guys?
Exactly.
Real quick, let me interrupt.
Bro, we were watching that spring game together. Like, yes, start Robertson.
Because the first two drives, Blake goes and throws the ball straight into double coverage. For what
real
reason?
Quick, fellas, let me introduce to the show real quick some OU backup plan here. My Preston Gant from the PG show. Welcome to the show, PG. How's it going, bud?
What's going on?
Nada, man. We're just sitting here debating. I was telling the guys I had Greg Swaim on my show last night. He is a fun wealth of history in the Big 12 conference. But one of the things he wanted to make sure to ask was, do you think Oklahoma and Texas will compete in the SEC, or are they going to become essentially Nebraska after its move in? So we were kind of talking about that. Christian's video and audio is a little sketchy, so I'm not sure. And we had talking a bit about Dillon Gabriel. I know that you and I have talked about this a bunch, within the shows that we're on a lot. That's a big question in Oklahoma, is whether or not Dillon Gabriel should be the starter or if they should go ahead and throw in Jackson Arnold. Give us what you kind of think about that as well, because, you know, as Logan was just talking about, you don't really want to go with a freshman, but then whenever they come in and they look really good, then people will be like, get him in the game now. You know,
do they look good though? Do they look good? Because Caleb Williams looked good against Texas, but when he went to go play Baylor and Oklahoma State, which were two elite defenses that year, I mean, maybe Oklahoma State he played a little better, but I mean, I will always be under the mindset that a true freshman should never start. Reason being, they need to sit down and develop. Same thing in the NFL. You should never start a rookie quarterback. You should always sit your rookie quarterback behind somebody, regardless whether the quarterback they're sitting behind is good or not, because they're going to have an opportunity to be in a weight room that is up to the next level. So they're going to be able to build weight. They're going to be able to learn a system. So they're not just going to be thrown into the fire and you're hoping that they at least understand a quarter of your playbook. You know, and the other thing is too, it's like with Jackson Arnold, we haven't actually seen him in a college system under pressure. So what's going to happen when he's got, you know, Texas defensive end and defensive linemen coming at him from all different angles? And I say though that team because that's probably going to be Oklahoma's biggest challenge this year is Texas. So what's going to happen, you know, when he's out there and he's got those defensive linemen and those edge rushers coming at him? You know, it's great to see him in a spring game. It's not the same. It's not the same when these other guys are out here to take your head off.
I agree. Do you feel though? I guess I'd ask you this question. This is the question that Christian asked a second ago: is do you end up seeing Jackson in as a starter by the end of the season, or do you feel like that's only going to happen if you have a catastrophic thing and maybe Oklahoma's really not playing up to what they should be?
I think you only see that if Jackson Arnold or if Dylan Gabriel gets hurt. I don't think you see Jackson Arnold in there. I don't think Jackson Arnold supplants Dylan Gabriel as a starter just if Dylan Gabriel's healthy. Dylan Gabriel threw for, 3,200 yards last year and only had 7 interceptions. And I would tell you 3 of those interceptions weren't really his fault. They were wide receiver bobbles. So, I mean,
there was the hold that didn't get called against Baylor too.
I mean, we have a Baylor and a Texas fan on here. So be real with me. You would take Dylan Gabriel if you did not have the quarterbacks you have now. You would take Dylan Gabriel as your starting quarterback.
Baylor
I'd probably take him over Blake Shapen right now.
Okay, and Texas, if you didn't have Quinn Ewers, you didn't have Malik Murphy or Arch Manning, or I probably would have taken him over Quinn Ewers last year. I mean, with those weapons that
he was better than Quinn
Texas had in those offensive line. I mean, but I'm just saying, like, I would say 60-70% of college football probably would have taken Dylan Gabriel as their starting quarterback last year.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't play bad. I didn't watch too many Oklahoma games. I might have watched the Red River, and the Baylor game, obviously. But, I mean, I just look at stats. I didn't see how he played.
What's that, Christian? Say that again.
The Red River was a good one to watch.
Yeah, he didn't get to play in the Red
Didn't
River.
see Dylan Gabriel play.
Hey, Christian, we're having some issues there, but let me kick you and then come back in. Come back into the stream. I'm going to kick you and then come back in, okay?
I'll just say this. If you didn't get a chance to see Dylan Gabriel last year, all you need to know is Dylan Gabriel threw for 3,168 yards, had 25 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, and he still didn't even play the whole dang season. And he was coming off of a left clavicle injury from the last season where he was out almost the entire season. So Dylan Gabriel's playing with rest. He's playing with better talent than he's ever played with before in college football. And Dylan Gabriel takes care of the football, and look at the season he still had, right? Dylan Gabriel's always taken care of the football in his career. So I look at it and go, any team would want Dylan Gabriel. I guarantee you Alabama would take Dylan Gabriel this year over what they have in their quarterback room.
Listen, man, they might, and even though they have some guys that one thing I would say about that though is the spring is not really a great place to start judging some guys, especially new guys, young guys, new to the system, guys like that, because of the fact that, when you look at Alabama, I mean, Milroe was a top-rated quarterback coming into the class. He was supposed to go to Texas, wasn't he? Or did go to Texas and then left to go to Alabama. We're not talking about run-of-the-mill. Huh?
He was committed to Texas and he decommitted whenever Quinn Ewers committed.
That's
and
right.
then ended up decommitting, and we just didn't get a great quarterback option that year.
Yeah. Bro, what's up with your internet, man? What's up? Killing me here. You guys in your internet down there in East Texas. What the hell?
Hey, man, I'm doing good.
You're nice and clean and everything. All right. No, listen, I don't know what's going to happen. But I guess my question to you, PG, was what do you think? I know last year the Ole Miss contingency was not happy with what it looked like with their quarterback situation in the spring. I think that they ended up being pretty good. Not as good as you wanted to be. I don't know that I believe that even though Spencer Sanders looked really good in this spring game with Ole Miss, that I think that he'll be any different than he was at Okie Light. So it's tough to kind of judge by that. Although you would hope that you can judge a little bit more about Oklahoma's defense after the spring performance, but maybe not. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Oklahoma's defense will be a little bit better. But again, you have to take everything you see in the spring game with a grain of salt because you're playing against the other side of the ball that, honestly, you're not out there to hurt those guys. But when you go to play Baylor and Waco, they're out there to hurt you. So it's like
playing us again.
I'm just saying, because you're on there. It's an easy example because you're wearing Baylor gear. Like, but you know what I mean? Like, it's different when you're in the middle of a game. Like, those guys are out there to hurt you. They're out there to take your heads off. And when you're in a spring game, you don't have that happening. You're not touching your quarterback. Sometimes you don't touch the running back, like in terms of tackling them. So you can't take what you see in a spring game and be like, oh, this team. Now you can take certain aspects of that and say, okay, well, things I saw on the defense for Oklahoma, they communicated 10 times better in the spring game, better than I had ever seen them communicate last year and in the spring game last year. So if that's an indication of what we're going to see this season, then yeah, I'll tell you Oklahoma's defense is going to be leaps and bounds better, because I think that was probably one of the main points of break for Oklahoma's defense was there was times where they were literally confused on what they were supposed to be doing.
Not in the right positions.
Out there who had to communicate with each other. But people were out
the Baylor game.
each other. It looked like they knew what they were doing. So, those kind of things I look at and go, that can carry over into the season. But watching Deshaun McCullough go through in practice and take somebody's head off, that's not. I mean, I don't expect that to see.
But I would also say though, when you look at Deshaun McCullough, you can't fake what he did in that game either. You know what I mean?
You can't. But also at the same time, I got to go. Okay, so if that's what we think Deshaun McCullough is his ceiling, then we're probably gonna be somewhere in the middle.
I get you. Yeah, I get that.
I think we just want to, because we have lived in the golden age of OU football. That's the problem. We've lived in the golden age of OU football, regardless how you want to look at it. Yes, we haven't won a national championship since 2000, but Oklahoma's at least been to them. They've been in the playoffs. They've been winning 10+.
They've dominated the Big 12.
We have not lived in the 90s. I have not lived through the 90s of the John Blake era. So all I know is Oklahoma winning games. So when you have a season like last season, yeah, people are going to be concerned. They're going to instantly have higher expectations but sometimes, you've got to reset those expectations and understand that, this isn't a Lincoln Riley taking over a staff that Bob Stoops left and a foundation that Bob Stoops left only to ruin it 6-7 years later.
No, I get it. And I agree that, if you take a look at the overall picture here, and I think that Christian would say the same about Texas, is that year two here, you've got basically the entire roster has turned over now at this point. Like 85% of the roster has changed when it comes to scholarship players for Oklahoma just since last season, after Lincoln left. That could be a good thing. That could be a bad thing. I think that the guys that you were missing from last year's team were those guys that went to the NFL draft. And again, I feel like we end up kind of sounding like broken records, but Brent Venables' defense is difficult. It's much more complex than the one that you see from, or the speed D that we were seeing before that. These guys weren't necessarily ready for it. You would see it. The Baylor game was a perfect example of that, down by the goal line near the end of the game. And, Reese gets into the end zone, and it's simple. You had two guys in the same gap and a wide open gap for him to run into, at the end of the game.
We had a lot of the same stuff like that as well. We were extremely young team as far as both sides of the ball, skill position wise. Anyways, our offense and defensive line did not play up to the hype. Matt Jones, Dylan Doyle, they didn't really play up to the hype either, and they didn't really lead the whole room. So what Dave Aranda has come out and said is we're just going to take this complex defense that they have, because Dave Aranda is a defensive mastermind. But now they have younger guys, so they're kind of having to pull it back a little bit to make it a little bit more simple and easier to make them not have the busted coverages. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this, though, about Texas. Texas had I would say a problem in their locker room, but a lot of Texas's problems came down to recruiting. And in year 2 at Sark, it's like I think you saw a turn because on the recruiting trail, they went after 3 areas, which honestly I feel like Texas has kind of been struggling in: defensive ends, offensive line, and linebacker. They've addressed all 3 needs, and all 3 of those have been pain points for Texas since Mac Brown has left Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you look at Texas's development and turnaround, I think part of it is, yes, it's been a locker room culture change, but they've went out there and they've like Sark has attacked and addressed those needs for that team, and that's where you're going to see the improvement for Texas. They've been able to land those top tier classes, but they haven't been able to do much with it because, yeah, it's great to get 5-star quarterbacks and 5-star running backs, but if you don't have the offensive line to protect either one of those,
that's fair.
That's what's been A&M's problem the whole time too. Like they recruit crazy high rated guys, but they're just terrible in the locker room.
Yeah. Well, and they're not recruiting based on who fits their program there. They're doing it based solely on 5 stars, whether you're a defensive lineman, whether you are, a whatever it is, but they're all skill guys. And like that's kind of what PG is saying, I'm guessing here, is that you got to look at it as a situation where they're recruiting just talent and not so much on the who you need as your team or who fits the way that your culture is supposed to be. I don't know. Go ahead.
I personally, seeing it from the Baylor aspect, we don't get the 5 stars. We rarely get 4 stars. But what you see is a bunch of guys that don't look like they don't have any skill, but they're fit into what we need. So it's hard for me to be friends with Christian, be friends with you, Jason, and hear y'all talk about 4 and 5-star guys. I'm just like, man, I think we've had 2. I think it was KD Cannon and then somebody else that transferred to like Boston College.
I'll explain it to you this way. I'm talking to a recruit today. We're talking about we're specifically talking about Bryant Wesco and talking about Oklahoma recruiting. And he said, it's a funny thing. He says, Clemson wanted to offer me a month ago, but wanted to see me come do a camp privately. And I thought I'd seen enough through film and thought they should offer me. Auburn, the same thing. I'm not even going to talk about OU. And, we talk a little bit about that. He talks about the school he went to today, but ultimately it comes down to this. He said, which now makes me think, should I have camped to those places to secure a spot with a bigger school? I'll never know. But stars only matter in this process of recruitment, and that sucks because half these kids aren't as good when they hit the field. So to answer your question, these schools can continue to go after the star kids, but they're missing out on top talent if these schools don't get their heads out of their fill in the blank there.
I like
now,
this.
Do I want to be a backup recruit?
Too.
Yeah, so it's like what he's saying there is the stars don't always matter because a lot of the time, like with Baylor's point, they'll go get the 3 and low 4-star guys and, maybe the guys that aren't even ranked in the composite, but, they're being underlooked. They're undervalued, maybe because they go to a smaller school district or something like that.
There's a million reasons too, PG. You're right about that. But there's a million reasons. I've got a kid that played at San Antonio. He only got to start his senior season. Darian is unbelievable, and he's got to go to a JUCO at 6'3", 200 pounds, catches every freaking thing that comes in his direction, had a 20-catch football game as a senior last year, and he's not playing Division I football this season coming up. I mean, these things happen for a number of reasons, but I think you're right about that. I think that when you look at some of these less than blue blood schools, even the ones that have had success like Baylor has, I mean, when you start looking at going all the way back to obviously Art Briles, they didn't have to get a bunch of 5-star guys in order for them to be good. They're going to be very good with a handful of 4s and we've said this a ton. The best of your class is always going to be those 3-star guys, man. It's always it's identifying the 3-star that fits your system, your way, your culture, that kind of stuff. I think that's what separates teams. It really is. Let me jump into some of this. Sucks to lose. Let's see. Sucks to lose out on Wesco, but 5-star wide receivers haven't played well at OU. I think that's kind of generalizing things, but hope we can land that 5-star tight end, though. We'll ask PG about that here in a second. And then cannot miss out on Stone. Here we go with that, Sooner Cowboys. I already heard this one before, too. One thing about OU, they will be all right at wide receiver. You know, I really think that, hey, Brennan, what's up? I really think that when it comes to the wide receiver classes, just we'll go with that real quick. I'm not worried about these wide receivers. I think you have guys coming in that are going to be fine. I think that, Jacoby, if Jacoby ends up playing offense, I don't know that he doesn't become a star right away. You know what I mean? I just feel like that's one of those things. And I would agree that this is, the loss of Kel hurt the wide receiver room a little bit. I think that shook up everybody when all that happened, that whole deal. But I would tell you that there's a lot of talent in the locker room right now. Some of it hasn't been realized yet so much. But I do think that, you've seen some of these guys have done very well at times. You haven't seen them take over and be the number one guy because Marvin was the number one last year. Obviously, somebody's got to step up into that position, right? But, I mean, when you start talking about I think that Jaden Gibson got by what happened to Brown not being able to come in this season, I think Jaden Gibson got a new lease on life. He's got another opportunity to show that he can be the guy. At 6'6" and the speed that he has, it feels like if he can get the confidence, make that one big play, he might step up, PG, don't you think? And then the same with some of these other younger guys. I think they're going to get an opportunity, but I think you've got some transfer guys that should fit in. I'm not really worried about that wide receiver room. Are you?
I mean, I'm worried about it from the standpoint of what you have this year is outside of Farouk and Stoops. And I mean, maybe you can say Bunkley, Shelton, and DJ Graham, but DJ Graham hasn't played the wide receiver position for OU yet in a game, and neither has Bunkley Shelton. So it's like you really don't have a lot of experience going outside of this season. And I think that's the thing that concerns me and a lot of OU fans. But, losing Wesco, I mean, it sucks because you don't get the 5-star, which, by the way, we call him a 5-star. He's a 247 5-star. He's not a composite 5-star, which, I like looking at the composite rankings because that kind of tells you how everybody in the industry feels, even though I feel like 247 has the best rankings out of anybody. I do like composite. So he's not a composite 5-star, but he is a really good talent. I think a lot of people are overlooking what we have coming in, and Zion Kearney, who ran a 100-meter time of 10:89 and 10:98 just in February. And then you have KJ Daniels, who ran a 10:94 and 11:48 this spring. So, yeah, like there's other options for Oklahoma, and you have your taller guys and Nick Anderson and Jaden Gibson still here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you have the portal guys that came in. I mean, we got somebody from Texas, even another speed guy that hadn't gotten his opportunity. I wish Christian would get his butt back in here so we could, kind of bust his chops a little bit about that one. But I still feel like, and I think that you're right on this, Sooner Cowboys. I think Petaway, if you've seen pictures of this guy, and I mean, he looks a lot like a linebacker right now, but he's still tearing the top off with that 10-100 speed that he's flashed.
Oh, he's extremely fast. He's got a good, I mean, if Jacoby Petaway can come in here and put on, I'd say an extra 10 to 15 pounds and hardly shade anything off of his time, you're looking at a tremendously good quarterback for Oklahoma.
Run or wide receiver, you mean? Yeah, got it. Look, I agree. But with your and again, that's why I was saying I'm not overly concerned there. I think my concern would be, the defensive line, which I think that they've also addressed through the portal. We've talked about this a lot.
Enough.
Huh?
I don't think they've addressed it enough.
You don't think the defensive line has been addressed enough?
I think 200 or 300-pound guys helps you a little bit because now you can run your 3-man front more effectively. But in terms of talent, I don't know if you have enough. Like if we were going into the SEC this year with this defensive line, I would be concerned. I'd be really concerned.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not saying it's not a finished product. I was saying that I was kind of setting it up that I think that they've done very well in the portal. I'm one of those guys. I think Rondell Bothroyd is going to be a game wrecking. I love what he's bringing to the table.
Yeah, but those are edge guys. Those are edge guys. I look at it and go, okay, like, so are you going to run 3 interior and 2 edge rushers? But like, we didn't see Venables do that a whole lot last year. So it's like, I'm concerned about the product.
He doesn't play the edge though. He's more of a defensive tackle.
I think they plan on playing him at the edge.
Huh?
I don't think he's going to play the interior.
Yeah, is Lacey not going to come in? Is Sooner Cowboys asking? And this is. I don't know that he's come out and said this. I think that's the rumors and rumblings around the program is that Lacey's probably not going to play. But I also feel like, what's the kid's name from Texas State? And you're better with this recruiting stuff than me.
Devon
Sears. Yes.
Devon Sears.
Love him too. I think that he looks like he may be a big addition in that respect. I think that some of the guys, you're still hoping that Isaiah Coe and these guys really step up and become what you were hoping that they were gonna, right? Is that where you?
Yeah, I mean, I saw Isaiah Coe when I was at the camp. He was walking back from one of the. I think there's a bench area in the Everest Center because he was walking back through that area where the bathrooms are into the field, heading towards the stadium. He looked good, but Rondell Bothroyd's not big enough to play the interior. He's only 265.
I've seen from what I've seen on film. I know he's not 300 or whatever, and he's not going to be that guy that's going to run stuff. That's not what I think. That he's going to be the guy that gets into the backfield, even from whatever position they stick him in on that line. And you see a lot of these guys now. I mean that's definitely a potential. I think your standouts on the defensive line is going to be Dejon Terry, who's one of the guys you just got, Isaiah Coe, and I mean maybe Sears, maybe. I'm not sold on what we're going to see from Gilliam, not sold on what we're going to see from Stripling. So there's a lot. I mean, maybe this defensive line shocks us this year. Maybe it does. I'm just not 100% sold on it. That's why I've said if you're Oklahoma, the 2 needs you need to fix in this class are your defensive line and your offensive line, meaning you probably need to take at minimum 5 on each side in this class, 5 on each side, at least. If you can get more, like let's say you have 5 defensive linemen and 3 of them are 5 stars, and you can get a Nigel Smith and Joseph Ajonye and maybe a Jaden Jackson, take all of them. Take as many of them as you can get. Every one
Figure
of them.
Out the problem later. Figure out the path later.
Hey, that's a great problem to have, too, to have too many guys to play that position. And this is what the difference is when you start talking about SEC defensive lines or really in the trenches period in the SEC is the waves of guys that they run at you.
Yeah, you'll see 22, 23 guys in that defensive line room. It's crazy.
Right.
And yeah, I'll be curious to see exactly how they're going to run the 3-man front this year. And, personally, I think if you're Oklahoma, you go out there and you try to do just a basic 4-man front all season. And, in different situations, maybe you can do a 3-man, maybe you throw 5 guys out there, but I think you'll be better off with the 4.
So you're still of the belief that they're going to go with a 4-man front, or you want them to, is what you're saying?
I want them to, because I don't think you have the personnel to do a 3-man front yet.
Yeah, I don't know that they will, but I would hope that, and I agree.
If they had a Siaki Ika, they might.
What's that?
If they had a Siaki Ika, like his junior year, they might have the personnel.
No, I agree. I would agree with you on that. And as Kim's saying, BV is not a sunshine pupper. When he says this defense will look a whole different planet, you can bet we're way better. Way better.
Last year.
What is way better? It is the thing. I mean, what's the difference in 121 or 124, depending on which one you're looking at on total defense, and 70? If they were to that top 70, that could last year, that means you're probably at 8, 9, 10 wins, right? This year, it's yet to be seen. But what I would tell you is that I'm not positive that we are looking at a situation where I think it could be significantly better at the linebacker positions, which are the guys that are going to come up and plug those holes anyway, PG. And then the fact that secondary wise, when you look at what they have in the secondary, and if the improvements are there, that you might see a big difference there. Are you ready for the SEC this year? Maybe not. Maybe not along the defensive line in the trenches, but I think they can piece together enough of a defense there that they should definitely be competing for this Big 12 championship. And I think it's a good step forward for, moving forward as well. You've got some guys that are obviously going to have to put on some weight. You've got some guys that are going to have to prove some things to this team, to these coaching staff. But I feel like they're definitely headed in that right direction. I wanted to address what we continue to see from you Sooner Cowboys on here is that they must land Stoney. I'm gonna send this to PG in just 1 second, but I'm gonna tell you what I said before. If Stoney doesn't end up in Oklahoma, it isn't gonna be because of Oklahoma. It's not gonna have a damn thing to do with Todd Bates. PG, take that one for me, because I know you feel the same way about that.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way, but I'm now starting to think he's going to end up. I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable now with him in this class.
I think he's going to be in it too. I'm just saying if he doesn't, it doesn't have a damn thing to do with Todd Bates.
I agree with you. If I had to take a guess and if he ends this class, I'd give you 80% now. And I think there's a good chance it could happen before the end of June. Because I think Stone knows the importance of his presence in this class. And I think he knows that if he commits, it completely changes the narrative of how recruits are looking at Oklahoma on the defensive side of the ball, because he's a top 10 player on the composite. He is a game changer. So it's like he gets out there, recruits are going to look up to him and say, well, why did David Stone commit to OU? Because it's not because he's in the state. He's not in the state.
No,
so
he's been at IMG.
He's been at IMG. He's been around. It's not like he's only been going to Oklahoma. He's been around to all these other schools. So why Oklahoma? What's the appeal? Maybe you start to draw some guys in to take a look. I said this on a video yesterday. I said it on Ty's podcast. I said Justin Williams has became Sammy Brown committing to Clemson has made Justin Williams a top priority prospect for Georgia. What's going to happen if David Stone commits to Oklahoma? And maybe Joseph Jonah-Ajonye says, okay, I'm going to commit to Oklahoma. Can Oklahoma potentially start to position themselves in a place for Justin Williams now? Because Justin Williams sees, okay, Oklahoma's landing elite defensive linemen. They're doing something over there. They have a teammate of mine. The same thing that I guarantee you Georgia's trying to do. They're trying to position themselves with Joseph Jonah-Ajonye to get to Justin Williams because, he's a need now. They need that linebacker because they didn't get Sammy Brown. So, Oklahoma could potentially try. I don't know if they're going to do that, but they could try to position themselves in that way.
Right. And I feel like you're right. It could be that domino that kind of pushes everything over. You might see guys like Nigel and JJA and even, I don't know where it is with Dominic McKinley and all that stuff. I still feel like everybody sees him as being an LSU guy and him being in the state. But I know that I was fixing to say, not you, everybody but you, seems like they still have him in the LSU, under their tent, or if you want to call it that. So I feel like you're probably in a situation where, but if you get a guy like that, if you get Williams Nwaneri or you get Stoney, you're probably going to see some of these guys tip to Oklahoma. And I agree that helps out with linebackers too, because they look at it as, hey, that when you get a guy like that, that frees me up to be able to roam around and make plays. They know the best linebackers in the country and at every level understand how important that defensive line position is for them being able to eat up blocks and do stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'll throw this out to you because for all the haters that pretty much think we have to land every elite guy on the defensive line. So let's just say you only land Nwaneri, Stone. Let's say you only land Jaden Jackson. And let's say you pick up some guys like Tyler Moore from Locust Grove, Georgia, who I've talked to Parker about him. He's not ranked in the composite, but he was a guy that Todd Bates at one point was looking at. So let's say you get him, and maybe you get a couple of these other guys like maybe Peter Pisansky from Jesuit High School in Tampa, Florida. Maybe you land some of these, guys that are ranked farther down, but they're big bodies, right? Would you still consider that a stellar defensive line recruiting class for Oklahoma? Yeah, you're going to miss out. Let's say you're missing out on Nigel Smith, missing out on McKinley, you're missing out on JJA, but you get 2 top 10 guys on the defensive line, and then you get, so
when's the last time we had one?
Yeah,
exactly. What I mean? So, when's the last time you had one at Oklahoma? To me, this is where I feel like the disconnect between a lot of the fan base. And I'm not picking on you just here, Sooner Cowboys. I know where you're at on it, and I understand it. And I've been busting your chops more than anything at this point. But I feel like the disconnect there is that this expectation that it's always going to be the same old if they don't get all of them. And, it was that knee-jerk reaction of Zadavian Sims deciding not to go to Oklahoma. I don't think that they're offering Zadavian Sims the same thing that they're offering Stone or Waneri or even Nigel. I just don't see that that's the case. I don't know that I ever had Zadavian Sims in the camp of Oklahoma. I just didn't. And I think that had he have come to Oklahoma and had he made that choice, then you probably lose Stoney or Waneri or possibly Nigel Smith or one of the guys that they really wanted, because I feel like Nigel Smith is one of the guys that they really, really want. And,
they do. They do. But
the dude is an unbelievable athlete, man. Watch him play basketball and come back to me. It's unreal.
Yeah, I'll say this though. I think Ohio State's the leader there right now. Not by much.
I do too. I've been noticing that. Noticing that. Yeah.
I just from talking to him and stuff. I think right now as it sits, Nigel's leading with Ohio State, but he also hasn't been on his OV to Oklahoma yet. So I mean, I think we're all going off the feeling of, okay, like he's had this great experience at Ohio State, but it's not.
Everybody has a great experience at Ohio State or Michigan or at Georgia or at Alabama.
Larry Johnson is the godfather of defensive line recruiting.
That's right.
Exactly. Like one thing that about bigger fan bases like Texas and Oklahoma, they think that hell is about to break loose if y'all don't land one freaking 5-star. And it's just because that's what
it's one after the other that happens with it too. Yeah,
like they want to land every single 5-star, not y'all specifically, but the fans, the people that don't go and watch every recruit's highlight tapes and can't sit down and talk to them, everything like that. All they see is, oh, he's the number 1 linebacker in whatever, and I think that's where a lot of fans are like, okay, we got to do something about recruiting instead of just waiting and seeing how those recruits build up.
Realizing that Todd Bates was the recruiter of the year, just a few seasons ago. And he's put 4 guys in the first round of the NFL draft recently. So
I'll say this though. I think OU I'm not going to lie. This might be a hot take. I think OU got the short end of the stick on who BV took from Clemson, because Wes Goodwin and Nick Eason, it's almost like they didn't miss a beat after BV left. Which
it's easy to say today with Wesco and freaking Brown just decided on them.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what impact did they have on the recruiting while BV was there? Because they still landed Peter Woods last year. They still landed Vic Burley. So I do wonder, was Todd Bates the guy that was really out there selling guys at Clemson, or was he just out there developing the talent? And was Nick Eason out there really help leading the charge? And was Wes Goodwin out there really leading the charge at Clemson? Because I said it today, this new regime at Clemson might be scarier than any regime we've seen at Clemson so far.
I think that remains to be seen. I think they're in an advantageous position still, even though the ACC folks are going to tell you that they're in a bad position being in the ACC. I disagree with that. I think it's much easier to get through there and get to the playoff, even whether it's 12 teams or 4, than it is to run the gauntlet in the SEC and be able to do it from there. So, and I believe that, as much as I'm not a big Dabo Swinney guy, I would tell you that the guy knows what the hell he's doing when it all boils down to that. He has consistently found ways to bring guys into Clemson, South Carolina that normally were not going there, and when you're beating Oklahoma, or you're beating not just Oklahoma, you're beating Bama and Georgia out on guys like Sammy Brown. It's one thing to get in receivers and quarterbacks and stuff like that. That's fine. You just brought in one of the most sought after coordinators in the country in Garrett Riley. So I can understand the Bryant Wesco thing. You know, I definitely can understand that. When you're beating out Bama and Georgia for linebackers,
defensive linemen. I just want to point this out there because I talked about this yesterday with Ty, and I said, go look at the state of Georgia and look at how many of these kids actually go to Georgia. It is shocking at how many kids Clemson goes in there and steals from Georgia. It's insane. And honestly, the top 4 players all might end up at Clemson, which is crazy to think that they're going to potentially land Sammy Brown, KJ Bolden, Mike Matthews, and Edric Houston. But that is a extremely high possibility.
Yeah, listen, look, again, I'm not one of the, first off, and let's just not forget this part of it. It's freaking June. Okay, it's freaking June. Signing day, the first one isn't until the end of December. You know, we're there's plenty of time. There's going to be a lot of things that happen in between now and then. This thought of before we close the book on this recruiting part of it, when it comes to Stoney, I don't think that he holds that much significance on whether or not any of these other guys come or not. I just don't think so. Could it be a big thing if he was to say yes and go to Oklahoma as we expect him to? Sure. Is it the end of the road if he doesn't? No, it isn't. It isn't. Because, again, I believe that a lot of it has to do with – PG, you talked about this a lot when you were on Ty's show, that the group of kids that he was running around with was not okay with his mother. That's why he ended up at ING in the first place, and she still hasn't been sold on him coming back and being around again those same people, right? Are you there with me, PG? Frozen too, son of a bitch. we're struggling with people today. Okay.
And there was 2.
Yeah, and then there was 2. That's all right. We're the best 2 anyways. Here we go.
It's all good.
No, listen.
If I know what I'm talking about.
In the end, I know you know what you're talking about. In the end, it's freaking June. It's freaking June. And I think that, hey, this plays a lot into it as well. You have to know that what goes on in the season is going to have an effect on this recruiting class as well. If they come out and they do have the 10-2 season, or even a 9-3 season, and you're starting to see that they're on their way back up, some of these guys are going to tip that way. But I think that there's so much that's going to happen, when it comes to what happens over the long haul. We're going to find out towards the middle of the season. And when you get into these big games with these other teams that you're looking at, do they need some positives in the recruiting? Yeah, of course they do. But if you remember this time last year, Sooner Cowboys, everybody was screaming that they hadn't gotten anything but a bunch of 3-stars, which, as Fatty said, he believed that the main backbone of the program isn't 3 and 4s. And I agree with you 100%. In fact, I would go further and say it's the 3s. It is the 3s. Yeah. The 4s and 5s are going to be who they are, and you're going to find out, kind of what happens. There he is. He's back. You're going to see kind of what happens with the 4s and the 5s. This time last year, though, we were in a bad position. They didn't have anybody. Then all of a sudden you get Jackson, and you get PJ, and you get Makari Vickers, and it's just one after the other that started to fall OU's way. If you can get that 1 or 2 guys, I think that it could start a snowball effect in that instance. But I also feel like I'm not going to sit here and put everything on David Stone's recruitment, man. I'm just not going to do it, because if that's the case and he doesn't do it, then you have to believe that Oklahoma's in the trash? Because I don't believe
that's what they'll believe. That's what most of them will believe, because that's top name guy. Like I said, that's all they've been hearing about. Every time I see anything about David Stone, it's always talking about Oklahoma.
Yeah. Well, he's from the area.
I mean, that's what I'm getting at, is like everything I've seen him, not technically him, I guess, but people that I've talked to him, it's all really him going to Oklahoma. But if somehow, some way y'all do not get him, it's over. Don't open Twitter for 3 or 4 days, if not a whole week, for actual Oklahoma fans that know football, that know how all this works. don't do it because it's gonna give you a headache and you're gonna need some whiskey.
Oh, I've had one already, and a lot of it's because of Sooner Cowboys here. This is killing me. You're killing me, bro. This, it started on Ty's show where we were going back and forth with each other in the comments, and then PG was kind of bombing away at you from there too. Listen, I just feel like he's not the end all be all. I want to see him, for the record, I want to see David Stone in an OU uniform just as much as the rest of you do. But I don't think it's the end of the world if he doesn't. I would trust his mother knows best in a lot of situations when it comes to that kind of stuff. Do I trust this coaching staff to keep him in the right mindset? Yes. Does she? I don't know yet. I think the more we talk about it, PG, like you were saying a minute ago, I feel like the longer this goes on, it seems like it is Stoney is going to be a Sooner. But go ahead. Anything you got to add to that? Because I do believe he is going to be. But if he isn't, I don't think that means you don't get one Airy. It doesn't mean that you don't get JJA. It doesn't mean that you don't get Nigel. None of that.
I would say you're. I don't think you're going to land JJA right now. I would lean more Georgia in that direction.
Right.
And
I only say that because I think Georgia is for him, so that they can. I don't think OU is feeling like they're in that position where they have to watch. So I'd favor Georgia a little more there for benefit. Stone, I mean, it is what it is. I just say I think this is about to wrap up because you don't see Stone playing fan bases a whole lot right now. He's taking his official visits. I don't think he has any scheduled after. So,
bro, you're breaking up a little bit right now. There's something up with your microphone. I'm barely getting like every other word. Your video looks clean.
All right, is that better? Can you hear me
Better.
now?
Yes. Much
Okay.
better. What were you saying?
Okay. I just think that with Stone, I think just if you read between the T lines, no official visits after Oklahoma that are set, and he's not really playing the fan bases on Twitter anymore. He's going to be in Oklahoma
I like that part.
this weekend. I mean, he's going to be in Oklahoma every weekend, so it's like read between the lines. Is he going to commit? Is he he's going to be committing somewhere, and there's no way he's coming to Oklahoma this much and not committing to Oklahoma at this point. Okay. Unless his mom just doesn't want him here and he's trying to help get guys to Oklahoma. Which, if he ends up not committing to Oklahoma and recruits guys to Oklahoma, that's going to be a story for the ages. But
tampering like Lincoln Riley before he left.
Yeah, Lincoln's still tampering with everybody.
Oh, we know. What he does. We know.
This is what he does. This is what Lincoln does well.
That's why you got blocked, Jason.
That's true. That's fairly true. That's fairly
Jason,
true.
I'll just want to go ahead and let your fans know that since Baylor and Oklahoma will not be playing each other anymore, I am perfectly fine with beating y'all the past 2 years. So I have no reason to hate on y'all for the most part.
Okay.
But I try to be
pro-Texas as much as possible. I get it. Listen.
A little bit, but y'all compared to most other Big 12 schools, I'm going to take y'all's side. Just want to put that out there. I'm not some kind of Sick'em 365 asshole that's going to be,
shout out to Sick'em 365. Here we shout out to Sick'em 365. No, listen, I get it. And in the end, I feel like a lot of this stuff, it ends up, and we do this because we're content creators and we got to have something to talk about. And so this is a good subject to talk about a lot of this recruiting and stuff like that. When it boils down to a lot of this stuff, we're not going to know until you get into that season. I think when you jumped off there for a second, PG, what I was kind of getting at was, hey, look, once you get into the core of the season, I think you win and lose recruits there. If you can win some of these games that you need to win, you can show improvements in some of these places where you needed to show improvement. It's going to help in that aspect, don't you think?
No, yeah, that's definitely going to help once you get into the season and you can show recruits how you're improving on the defensive side of the ball. It's the same thing's going to happen for. See, somebody says in here something about Colorado. Same thing's going to happen for Colorado. It's all dependent on what they put on the field for the season. That's really what it's going to come down to. Like a guy like Danny Okoye, you put up another 7-8 win season, he's probably not come to Oklahoma. He needs to see 10
I would
wins.
agree with that. Yeah.
And he doesn't just need to see 10 wins. He needs to see 10 wins and a defensive line that is improved.
Okay. Listen, I agree with all that. And I think that a lot of these guys are different. And I think, with the NIL, it's changing a lot of this kind of stuff. But in the end, where do you see Oklahoma heading into the SEC? Where are they this time next year? Do you feel like they're going to be able to compete year one? Do you think it's going to take a year or two going in?
I think they're going to be able to compete year one, depending on the schedule they give us.
Right.
If they give us the schedule that I've seen, then OU is probably going to have a struggle. I think, what was it, like Alabama, Tennessee, LSU?
The first year right out the bat, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, in that schedule, hell no. But if you give Oklahoma like 2 of the top teams, and then you give them like pretty much subpar SEC teams which is what I would do. I'd give Oklahoma and Texas, give them 2 really good teams, and then give them middle of the pack and bottom tier teams. Let them ease their way into your
want
conference.
the Bama treatment.
Don't kill their brand. Like what's the SEC want to do? Kill 2 of the biggest brands in college football as you're bringing them into your conference? Don't do that. That is terrible. That's a terrible idea. Kill your brands that are already at the bottom of your conference. Kill those guys. Let your bigger brands that are coming in get a chance to, I guess, adjust.
Homer take from PG. Go figure. I get it, bro. No, I'm with you on that.
But I'm not gonna lie. I would love to go to Ole Miss the first year. So if they want to put that on the schedule, I would not be sad.
The Grove it'd be a blast, wouldn't it?
I think Sooner Cowboys is over here tripping. He wants y'all to go like 4-8 first year.
Screw that.
That's what he's asking for.
Bama, GA, LSU, and Texas A&M.
Oklahoma wins.
I'll take 2 of those
Oklahoma
4.
Wins one of those games first year. I don't know.
I think first year y'all will probably end up getting. I think it'll bounce off between, if Texas gets Bama, y'all will get Georgia.
You might win 2 or 4 there.
I think it might be like that. I don't think you'll have both of y'all playing against, like, both of y'all going against Alabama or both of y'all going against Georgia. I think it'll be 1-1 there, and then probably give y'all a closer.
Similar-ish schedule is what you're saying as far as the conference is concerned. Yeah, no, I can see that, and I would agree with what you're saying on that. PG, you don't want to kill the brand coming in and allow that to be the narrative that you just brought in to also Rans. What did they really do to increase the brand value of the SEC in general? I would agree that that's you want one of them to come in and compete until the end of the season, right? To where they're in the running for the SEC championship game until late, right? I would think that that's where you're hoping for.
I mean, at least keep it respectful. Like, you don't want everybody to turn around and be like, why in the world did we add these 2 trash teams that can't even get past
you don't want them talking about the stuff they're talking
Whatever.
about with Billy Napier in Florida. They're losing to Vandy in Kentucky and shit. You
Exactly.
definitely don't want that. You know what I mean?
I think that's kind of how the Big 12 has done the new 4 schools. It's like we didn't give them the top of it. You know what I mean? But we didn't give them West Virginia, Iowa State, whoever is going to be at the bottom next year. It's hard to tell looking at the Big 12 now because you don't really know ever in the Big 12. As y'all know.
Going to be the new dog at the top. So just
I'm
watch it.
telling
It's
you,
going to be the new dog at the top.
I would not be mad at Kansas.
I've heard some good things about Lance Leipold and how they're doing
No, same.
recruiting trail. Like Kansas,
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to be top, but they could definitely be a top 5 team in the Big 12. So
Oh, yeah, for sure.
PG, when you look at Lance Leipold, this dude has won 7 national championships, obviously at lower levels of college football. But when he was at Buffalo, I didn't know Buffalo had a Division I team. I knew they had a school up there. They were in the top 25 his last year there. There's a reason why they brought him into Kansas.
Do what?
And the things that he's doing there as far as the quarterbacks and look, man, look at what they did the entire opening part of last season. And a lot of the losses that they had whenever Jalen Daniels went down, it actually got Jason Bean looking a lot better. He almost beat Oklahoma. there was times that Kansas is 1,000 times different than it was before he got there.
I think Kansas can 1,000%, not 1,000%. I think that they can. Let me go back. They could have the most dynamic backfield in the Big 12. 1,000%. Devin Neal is crazy. Jalen Daniels is
very good, and Jalen
absolutely
is
crazy athletic.
I think it comes down to, do they stay healthy there? Are you able to keep Jalen on the field? But I do believe that Jason Bean showed that he was a lot better player than you and I thought he was at this time last season, right?
No. It was you and Christian, because I gave him crap about him losing to Jason Bean. Because they played against the first year. And I was always messing with him, talking about that is the guy right there. Big 12 quarterback of the year, whatever, offensive MVP. And he gets mad at it all the time. But
I'm just saying, I think Jalen is definitely the better player. But if you're looking at we lost him again. But I do believe that, again, Lance Leipold is the real deal. This is another one of those Kyle Whittingham type of coaches, or even Chris Kleiman, same kind of deal. This guy won a bunch of national championships at 1AA as well. I mean, there's a reason that these guys are here now. And if you look at it, a lot of the Big 12 seems to me, and it has been for a long time, I feel like the Big 12 the coaches in the Big 12 are kind of getting their opportunity to do something big there, and then they kind of use it to get onto something else, or a bigger program or whatever.
Yep.
I don't know that Leipold and Kleiman are necessarily like that. And it doesn't appear that Matt Campbell's like that so much either, although he hasn't been very good the last couple of years. So
Matt Campbell's stupid. He should have left a while ago.
He should have left 2 years ago whenever he had that shine was on him. It's dulled.
Breece Hall, Brock Purdy, Xavier Hutchinson.
Right. When that shine kind of came off, then it's, now he kind of needs to get in there and compete, because of last season just didn't look good at all.
They weren't a great team whenever they had those guys, but they were playing with the higher end teams in the Big 12. So that was probably his last opportunity, except for Hunter Dekkers actually kind of looks good, but the rest of that team, except like Jalen Noel, he looks like he could be solid. He was a great number 2 receiver behind Hutchinson, but as far as anybody else in their skill groups, iffy. So it's just.
I agree. That's the one team I would think of. Everybody's been asking kind of how do you look at, and we did that show on you guys' channel about where we thought each team was going to do, what the losses they could be, where they should finish in the rankings at the end of the Big 12 season. And if you're looking at, I think the bottom for OU better be with this schedule. It should be 8 wins, right? I would think that. Yeah, he pissed away his retirement contract.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, he did. He did.
That is the truth.
So I would say that same thing. I do feel like 8 wins better be OU's bottom with this schedule. Right, because you don't get Baylor. There's one loss from last year. You don't get Texas Tech. There's another one. You don't play K-State in the regular season either. There's another one of your losses. Where are the 4 losses that they could possibly have? Do they probably lose all of them? No. I really think that 9 and 10 wins, unless you have catastrophic problems, should be about where you land next year. If it's 8, that's the definite bottom, and I think it's the least amount that Oklahoma fans are going to put up with. Without it being a very hot seat for Venables going into year 3. Because I can look at one of the tops on the list of teams that can beat Oklahoma in 2023. You start with Texas because of the rivalry. You just don't know what's going to happen. I also feel like that trip to to BYU at the end of the season.
No,
shut up, Logan. The trip to BYU at the end of the season is going to be a tough game. UCF could prove to be a kind of tough game. It's in your house, but the trip to Lawrence more and more scares me to death. Right? More and more, it scares me to death. Should you win at least 2 of those 4 games that I just talked about? Probably. Am I worried about the Cincinnati game? No, I'm not. I think Satterfield is a step down at least from who they had at coach last year. They've lost 2 quarterbacks. I think that Cincinnati's trouble coming in right now. Houston, I think, is garbage. They don't play them anyway in the first one. The basement, the schedule is a 9-win basement. Yeah, I kind of feel like that's where they should be. You know, if
bearing injury.
Of course.
So if Gabriel goes out, it's a little bit different situation. But
that's when you can find out if Jackson is ready for his starting time. You know what I mean?
Does he come in and be Blake Shapen of 2021 and carry them to a Big 12 championship? If so, great. If he comes out and be like Blake Shapen of last year or Quinn against Oklahoma State last year, how are the casual fans going to look at Brent Venables at that point?
No, I know. And a lot of it, you know, I think that you're right there. And Sooner Cowboys, I think that these are, TCU. I listen, I'm one of the people that doesn't believe much in TCU this coming season. I just don't see it. I don't. I think that they lost, what did they have, 8 guys drafted, something like that. These were all super senior guys. Those dudes are gone. I think they may be better at quarterback, but I don't know what they have around them, and they're a lot younger.
I think their average age last year was like 23 or 22 and a half, something stupid. Stupid. Like they had a bunch of 25-year-olds on the team, right? Yeah. So you've got there's a big difference there. And I like Sonny as a coach. I'm not saying that I'm bad-mouthing any of those guys as far as how they coach and how they're even recruiting. I just feel like you get 67 hung on you in front of God and everybody, and you lose all those guys. I think you come out and you could easily have a hangover from that. And I think that if you don't go out there and beat the brakes off of Deion Sanders in that first game, it could get very ugly for you. If you lose that game, I don't either. I think CU wins. I do. I hope so.
I don't know how confident I am in that prediction, but I do think CU wins it.
That is one team that Oklahoma will always have a foot up on, is TCU.
What's that? Say that again.
That is the one school that y'all will always have a foot up on. TCU. As far as me, I hate TCU with everything.
Listen, man, I
everything.
Understand that. Well, that's your big rival right there. That ever since that year, and I think Jackson's going to be good too. Look, man, I believe that Jackson, by the end of the season, may be the guy. Do I think that they need to just shove him in? No. I think that you work him in at times, see what happens. If Dylan's playing great and OU's on a trajectory towards the conference championship, you don't mess with that. You work him into it as much as you can. But if there's an injury, I certainly think if Dylan was to get hurt again and say he loses 2 games to the season somewhere and Jackson comes in, he probably doesn't relinquish the job. That's my feeling on that. I feel like if that's the difference in this season and last season is that he'd be ready to step into a Texas game if that's what he has to do. He'd be ready to step in and play any of these schools, coming into, when you start getting down to the end of the season. He'd be ready to go in and beat the brakes off of Okie Light. He would be,
Okie Light doesn't have anybody either.
Okie Light's kind of weird. Listen, if you listen to Cody, they think that they replenished with better at all these positions. I doubt that, and I don't.
There's no shot.
I don't think so either. I think that Bowman is a reach. It's a reach if he even is the starter.
He didn't start at Tech. No, he started at Tech for 1 year. Transferred to Michigan. Was the 3rd string for 2 or 3 years. And I swear, dude, I would have been so mad if he would have came to Baylor. I'm hoping that Dave Aranda just told him no. Stop.
Who, Bowman? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because he was trying to.
Yeah.
And he's nothing.
I think he was trying to because he probably didn't want to go play for Gundy and that ridiculous offensive coordinator either. Why they didn't – I mean, I know why they didn't hire Kale because I think that after the locker room situation – it just hasn't been long enough for them to make that. And so I would say that that's one of those situations. That being said, I don't know that Bowman is the guy. I just don't, I just don't think that he
I
is.
don't know who else you go with.
You know who I think they ought to play? Gunnar
Gunnar?
Gundy. I think they ought to play Gunnar Gundy, man. Bro, come on, man. That place was loud and crazy. He played better than anybody in that game. He played better than anybody in that game. You're talking about the one steal shot that they got of him, and he's moving. And which a lot of it could have been the cameras moving because it was loud as crap right there.
There's no shot the cameras
just
are
busting
moving.
your chops, dude. I could care less.
I know. I don't even know why I'm trying to argue with that.
Hey, to echo what Adela said, please, please, please hit the like button. If you've been in here all this time and we've got 24 viewers right now, there's only 13 likes. Help us out. It's so important for us content creators. PG said to tell everybody he's sorry that he has a boo-boo internet connection. I guess you're getting some crazy storms up there right now. So that's something to do with it. Thanks, guys, for hitting that like button. That's important. Chokey Light will be a 5-win team, and that'll be something. I'm with you on
generous.
that one.
That is generous.
I have them pegged at around 5. Cody's telling everybody to beat the crap out of the over 7. I'm beating the crap out of the over under on that. I'm gonna go under. So
I'm not touching ours, by the way.
Yeah.
Ours is 7.5, and I don't know.
Yeah. So listen, and I think that's about what Oklahoma State is at. I think it's 7.5, and he's saying beat the crap out of. He's only won 7 games once in his career. It was early. Yeah, but he never had a mass exodus of players like he did this year's season either. And I don't care. There's no way you can even know that the guys you're getting in the portal are going to be heads above better than the guys that have been playing in your system for the last 3 years. So I'm not trying to hear that crap when it comes to Oklahoma State, because the truth of it is that they underachieve almost all the time. And I can't wait. I hope Cody's listening and watching and all this, because get on here and tell me I'm wrong, because I'm telling you, that's what they do. When they get in a situation where you need to win a game, they and choke it out.
Yep.
The Baylor game, they'd beaten the crap out of Baylor earlier in the season, and then they just gag in the championship game, man. It was just unbelievable.
Which I highly appreciate, by the way. Really helped us top off that season.
It did. It was a nice little end to the year, They're going to get in the freaking playoff, right?
Yeah, but it's all good.
Yeah. Hey, it's good times. Good times for Baylor that time, right?
We beat Texas.
I really wish that if there was a team that I wish I would like to see Oklahoma be playing Tech again last season because of that, what happened in the end of last season. But I would say that OU definitely owes Baylor, and it would have been nice to play them again. But
no.
You're probably looking at 10 years before they ever do again. So
that's fine. So I can hit you with the same line you hit Christian with about Kansas.
Yeah, it's been about the 2,000 days.
Or however long it was.
It was 1,200 days or something like that since they had beaten Kansas. I enjoyed that. That was fun. But now since then, it's always all I hear from him is 49-0. So it's it's like, ugh. But that's only that's not gonna help them next season whenever they get back after it. So, and my thing is, here's where I feel like with Texas, we've been talking a lot of Oklahoma here because obviously Christian bailed. I would say Texas, they are definitely ready to compete in the SEC. When you look at their recruiting wise, they have that offensive line in the trenches. If I agree with anybody about Sark, it's that he does understand that you have to build your recruiting classes based on needs and for your culture as well. But it's not just highly dependent on quarterback and receiver and running back. He made sure that when they started redoing their NIL structure, it was to pay my offensive lineman, pay my defensive lineman. Let's do that, right? I thought that was smart on his part. I still think that Sark is a non-adjuster. I think that that's a big problem for them. But if they don't compete in the SEC right away, it's not going to be because they aren't talented enough to do it. It's because he comes out with a great game plan. He never adjusts. Like everybody else adjusts. He doesn't make the adjustment, or he's not as good at making the adjustment.
And I think Texas has fallen in that category for the past couple of years, for sure.
Yeah.
Like even today, me and Christian were talking about it, and we were talking about how they lost 2 games whenever they were up by 14 or more at half last year. And I jokingly told him, like, look, man, that's better than it was the year before.
It was.
You lost
in
like
a row
4
they
or
did
5.
that crap the year before that.
It's like, but that's just, it seems like something Sark himself has to work on. And whoever they got at offensive coordinator, whoever they bring in as analysis, because for some reason they love bringing in old head coaches to be those offensive or defensive analysis guys.
The analyst guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's something that somebody needs to tell Sark to where he will listen. It's like, look, you have to change something. You can't just throw a deep ball to Xavier Worthy every time, even though it doesn't get completed half the time.
No, and
you don't have Bijan anymore. You can't just run the ball as well.
To me, that was the easiest thing you could have done last year. You take the Okie Light game. I mean, the Tech game, he fumbled one that, I mean, I wouldn't have expected that from Bijan in a million years in that situation, right?
Ever.
I think he had 2 fumbles his whole time at Texas or some crap like that, right?
I think it might have been only that one. Christian might be able to fact check me on that.
I'm sure he probably knows better than that, but I know they hadn't had many, right? So I wouldn't have expected that in a million years from him. But when you look at the Oklahoma State game, and I know I've said this, I mean, it's on the, our trailer for the channel, where, you're up 17. It's late in the third quarter on the road at Okie Light, and you don't make sure that Bijan or even Roshan, for that matter, are touching the freaking ball.
Yeah.
All the entire rest of the game. I would not have put that on Quinn's shoulders. I would not have done that to him. And it went to Quinn to where he looked like he failed. He's calling deep routes on crossing wind, which most people don't realize what goes on up there in Stillwater. They're so backwards that they have the stadium where the crosswinds affect north and south. You know what I mean? It's one of the few places in the country that's like that. So that's where I'm at. I feel like when it comes to those things, if that's going on where you don't know enough to think about that, and you don't put that ball in the hands of Bijan Robinson and Roshan Terry with Roshan Johnson with a 17-point lead late in the game, that's a coach's problem. That has nothing to do with Quinn. That has nothing to do with anything else. It has to do with your inability to adjust and do something else, or to do what needs to happen to win the game, right?
I agree. I mean, especially whenever you have Bijan and Roshan, I don't know the exact numbers, but they are both averaging, I want to say, over 5 yards per carry.
Dude, I know.
Like, what are you doing?
It was like the last time that he had touched the ball was, and even I don't mind using your little short passing game as your running game at that point. You know what I mean? Because then you don't have the ball in the air long enough for it to get knocked down by that crosswind, right? Yep. The last play that Bijan, I remember him having, was a 50-yard touchdown out of the backfield that he tosses him that ball on the side, and he goes untouched. Then he doesn't get the ball anymore.
It's crazy how stuff like that works. I mean, that's like how Baylor lost to BYU. Why are we trying to throw the ball while Richard Reese has
what a addition that dude was, bro? Good God.
3-star out of Belleville. Not too bad.
He was pretty good, bro. He was pretty freaking good.
But now the thing is, we have Bryson Washington, who looks really solid, and the guy from Okie Light, who can run the ball.
Dominic Richardson.
Yeah, Dominic Richardson. His name always slips my mind. But we still have Quaylen. Quaylen can make crazy athletic catches on the sideline, and he will run dang near anybody over.
Love it. Look, I think that they're better. If you're Baylor, you're better off. I think that when you had Bohannon there, you had a quarterback that could run. He didn't throw the ball as good as you wanted him to, probably, but they were winning football games, man.
Yep.
I'm sorry, they were. Were they limited when they got into a situation where they had to throw it? Yeah, but how often does that happen in a season? You know what I mean? How often does that happen in a season? I'm of the belief, and I've said this about the reason I'm kind of saying this is when I start looking at Texas, and as much as I like Quinn's arm, I think he's an NFL guy. I believe that when you look at the number 2 guy, he may be more dangerous than anybody in college football right now.
Oh my gosh, I wish he would transfer over to Waco. Just go in
there's 1,000. There's at least 25 teams probably that wish he would transfer.
Oh, I know, and they're all big Power 5 schools.
Florida, they wish the hell they could have gotten him.
Yep, and it's crazy to me. I don't understand why he is sitting behind them instead of in the transfer portal. I haven't heard anything about that. But
I don't know that he was ready a year ago, right? I don't know that he was ready a year ago.
He would have got thrown into the fire. But he had that foot injury or ankle injury, whatever it was, riding one of those scooters. Who knows exactly how bad that was. But whenever Quinn got hurt on like early second quarter, late first quarter against Alabama, I don't think Malik would have been able to keep them in that game like Hudson did.
I don't either. But Malik now, I think that if you stick Malik in a situation right now where he comes in and he's throwing the ball as well as he did in that spring game, which, again, you can't go too much off of spring.
Yeah.
But when you look at the difference between what he looked like and what Arch Manning looked like, there wasn't close, right? It wasn't close. Yeah. And I think that when you add in the fact that he might be the biggest stud in the freaking locker room too, when it comes to athleticism, he can run. I think that you could put Malik out there at the number 1 wide receiver spot and he would shine, right? That's the kind of athlete that he is.
Probably so. I mean, I bet if you put him at free safety, he's reading that quarterback like crazy.
Oh man, yeah. Nobody wants to see that. If you're an opposing team, you don't want to see a safety like Malik Murphy coming at you. Yeah, and that's the kind of guy we're talking about. Yep. So you almost feel like, I'm glad that they stuck with Quinn. But and this isn't even me bad mouthing Quinn Ewers because I think he's a good player, man. I think he's an NFL guy. I do.
I think he definitely took a step.
And he looked really good. Yeah. And I think that, but again, what do they put him in a position to be successful in ways that we have not seen Sark do in the past? And that's where, that's the questions that I have about this Texas team. It's not about talent. It's not about the offense. It's not about the defense. It's not about any of that to me. It's about what do you do in these situations where in the past we've seen Texas choke. We've seen them do it. We've seen you not adjust after the other team adjusts. And then, next thing you know, a 2-touchdown lead is gone and you've lost the game. It's just a situation. That's the situation I think you're in with Texas.
Yeah.
I feel like they're always going to be there. And I do agree with what Kim's saying here.
I was just about to say that too.
Mac was it was almost time for him to leave. They couldn't stick with Mac Brown forever. There was no way they were going to do that. The donors at Texas are always yes, they are. They are. Hey, newsflash, they are in Norman too.
No, I was to say it's any big school.
Yeah, they're a pain in the ass. Now, does Joe listen to the donors as much as DeLoss did, or and who's the guy now? It's who's their AD? He used to be at TCU.
I can't think of his name.
I'm just spacing his name. Do they listen as much? Does Joe do that at Joe C? No, he doesn't. That being said, there is a lot of toxicity, but if you win, you cure that stuff, right? But yeah, I've always said that they fired Mac way too early, but I think by now he wouldn't be, but he couldn't be there right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no way he was going to be there right now and then be on the trajectory that they are because it was time. Now, is he still doing good as a head coach in college? Yeah, he is. He is. But I think North Carolina is where he belongs when it comes to that. I was going to
say, I think he's at North Carolina still.
Yeah, it's a good situation for him at North Carolina. Would he be in the same kind of situation if he was at Texas losing 2 games a year? No. He wouldn't be. They just wouldn't be having it. Big LT. Welcome to the show, Big LTCU, Big TCU Game 1. We agree.
No arguments
we
there
agree here.
at all.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for making that comment. And if you're not already a subscriber, I hope you become one. But yeah, I agree with that. I believe that TCU it's not a coaching situation. I do feel like I agree with whoever said a few minutes ago. There's a big difference in the Briles offense and what the Riley offense is to digest wise. They don't. It's not in the same. It may look similar. It's not the same. It's there's a lot of just even the way the play gets called. My man, thank you. Good to hear it. I believe that just in the way it's called. I mean, Riley's play calls are 2 words. It could be 15-word play calls for the Briles offense.
Exactly.
They do different stuff, and they run a lot of different type of routes. A lot of it's based off of the RPO. There's a big difference. They don't do a lot of RPO stuff with Lincoln's offense.
1,000%. And TCU, that is the one reason why I am worried about them. Not necessarily next year, but the coming years after that.
Yeah.
Because once you get that Briles offense in there and it's set, they're doing great. Defense almost doesn't matter if you're scoring 60 points a game like Baylor was back in the early 2010s while we were able to keep up with y'all and with TCU whenever they were actually good until now anyways. That's when Baylor was at the top. Yeah. Because whenever we had the Briles.
Yeah, man, because you had guys that, it's easy to just kind of talk about RG3, but you had Bryce Petty, there's some guys that came in that you may not have known them when they got there, but you damn sure knew who they were by the time they left.
Oh, that's for them. Bryce Petty was one of the main ones.
Right.
Like Bryce Petty with Katie Cannon, RG3, he had Terrence Williams, and I was looking at their stats from that Heisman year.
Yeah.
And Terrence Williams had like 1,600 yards.
Bro.
I think it was like 20 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And whoever this running back was, his last name was like Gadaway, something like that.
Oh, yeah. Dude, bro.
They were so good.
Dude. I saw the Oklahoma game at Baylor that year. It was one of their last games in the old stadium, I think.
Yeah.
And it was very disheartening watching that game. It was a beatdown from right.
That man had, I think it was like 1,800 plus yards, 21 touchdowns. And RG3 himself was responsible for 47 touchdowns that year. 37 in the air, 10 on the ground, along with these.
Because they had Gordon and they were ridiculous. Dude.
Yeah, they were nasty. Ridiculous. And then our defense was headlined by KJ Morton, Ahmad Dixon, all of them.
Mm-hmm. Bro, yeah. I can't say that I was upset whenever Art Briles lost his position there. I think that helped the rest of the league.
Sadly, weirdly enough, he went to my dad's alma mater to coach high school football, which was like 30 minutes right down the road from me. And they went to state. If they weren't playing in it, they got semifinals, like crazy little three.
Look at what he did at South Lake Carroll. That got him the job at UNT, which got him the job at Houston, which got him the job at Baylor.
Oh, also, the athletic director now at my alma mater coached with him at Houston and at Baylor. Oh, yeah. I didn't know that until recently.
Huh.
It was wild.
You guys ought to get old Art on the show, man. You ought to get old Art on the show.
Yeah, that'd be great. I don't even know where he's at anymore because I don't think he's at Mount Vernon.
No, he was originally on the staff he was on Hugh Jackson
at Grambling.
At Grambling, but they got rid of him pretty quickly.
They pulled that one real quick.
Yeah, Doug Williams pulled the plug on that pretty fast, which I think is kind of silly. At some point, if we're gonna start saying that, if we really look at what was really happening, and I'm not going to sit here and take up for Baylor in entirety because I think they made some bad mistakes in that whole deal. Do I think it's all on that coaching staff? No, I don't. I think that there was something else afoot there. And I think that while Art made some missteps, right, in how he handled things, I think that Kendall also did the same thing. So did Jeff Lebby. They were all part of that. But in the end, I think that if any of them deserve second chances, they all do, right? So I don't understand why Art has to be ostracized for the rest of his life. This is not what America's about. Number one, everybody gets second chances in this world.
Yep.
And I'm not even talking about what happened, because there were some things that were going on there that is pretty bad. But I also believe that the police department in that area, I think that there's a lot of things that went on within the Baylor community and with the Waco community that had a lot to do with that. And it had very little to do with just how it was handled by Art Briles. That it's easy to make that him the scapegoat when you fire his ass and send him on, so he can't really defend himself.
I mean,
it's easy to do that.
It's hard for me to talk about that because I get a little mad about it, because it's just a whole screwed up situation. And I think most of it is mainly just for Sean Oakman himself, because I know just how he's built and how he plays. He would be going crazy in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
So I try to not talk about it too much. But it was a lot. It's a lot of crazy stuff that happened with that, and stuff that I'll just leave it at that.
No, I get it. And like I said, that's why I was saying it for you. I didn't want you to have to. I'm not going to sit here and kill Baylor on that all the way around. I'm not killing
I hear
just the coaching staff for that crap. I'm not going to do it, because I think it's very easy to point that in that direction. I've even heard 365, those guys say kind of similar to the same thing. It's very easy to point all that at Briles and Jeff Lebby and Kendall, and not take a look at the overall picture of what was going on in Waco. And when you're still in Waco, it's easier to continue to push that narrative 10 years down the line, 11 years down the line, right? Mm-hmm. It's easy to do that. Does that make it any more true? No. No. A lot of this stuff had to do, yeah. Yep. You're right. Hey, listen. Yeah, Grambling immediately starts competing for titles. If listen, I've known Art Briles for a long time and watched his offenses from high school in Texas all the way up to when he was at Baylor. There's very, very few offensive minds alive that are anywhere on this dude's level.
See, West Rust here, they run the same offense.
Yep.
And everybody's wondering, how do you have these
Oklahoma runs the same offense, but
it's crazy.
Yeah,
but
it's an offense that can win, and it can put up stupid PlayStation numbers all day long. I was very glad that he did not go to Texas when they probably should have hired him at Texas. I'll put it to you that way.
I agree.
Oh, thank God he didn't get that job.
That would have been real bad for y'all's rivalry.
Yeah, it would have been. It would have been bad. It probably would have changed a lot of things, Again, so what do you feel like? What do you see from Baylor this season? I know we hadn't got to talk a whole lot about it. Where do you see them doing this season? Are they competing for that Big 12 championship?
I think that we're still too young to get to the Big 12 championship or to really have a real shot. I see us in realistically probably the top 5 of the Big 12. Okay. It's hard for me to gauge. We have almost a whole new offensive line. Our defensive front is different, but we brought in pretty good guys, like really good fits for the positions that we needed. Like Jarrell Boykins is almost built the exact same as Siaka Ika. He's a guy that transferred from a JUCO. We brought in Mike Smith out of Liberty, who played out of his mind at Liberty and at Mississippi Gulf Coast JUCO before that. And he could be a great fit. We got Bryson Jackson moving from linebacker, who was primarily a pass rusher, trying to move over to star, to try to figure out what to do with that. How can we even get close to Jalen Petrie?
Mhm.
And offense, I feel like they're going to be better depending on the offensive line. Because we have the Barrington brothers, we have Elijah Ellis, we have Gavin Byers, and then we have a question mark at left guard for the most part. It's just trying to figure out who's going to fill that. And running back room is solid, like we talked about. Blake Shapen, I still don't know as far as watching the spring game, but like you said, it's hard to be able to tell through a spring game. Receiver room, I think they take a huge step with Keytron Jackson, who should have been Arkansas's #1 receiver. We got Armani Winfield coming off of his redshirt freshman year. Monterey Baldwin, if he's healthy, he's going to put up stupid numbers.
Mhm.
Just because if he hits a slant, he's gone. If y'all let him touch the ball, he's out of there. The dude's stupid fast. If you let Richard Reese make 2 cuts and find an opening, he's out.
That dude's a baller, man. He's a baller.
And he can break tackles too. He's not
man.
just
He's a little bowling ball type of dude, man. He's gonna get around you and he can run you over. I like him.
Exactly. It all comes down to our offensive line on the offensive side. Last year, I want to say we were bottom 5 in blitzes called, like just straight blitz plays.
Mm-hmm.
If we weren't last, we got to be able to get pressure there. We have to be able to bring a star down. But Dave Aranda went back and talked about how that was because of the youth in the secondary or some of the older guys. You saw everybody.
He was a little concerned about them getting burned.
Exactly. Because the older guys,
makes sense,
which are all the ones that transferred out to Arkansas, to Liberty,
sure,
and everything else, they just weren't fitting that mold because this was really the first year we had to see a different group besides the ones that were there with Jalen Petrie and Terrell Bernard and everybody else.
Yeah, I get it.
So it is going to be tough. I want to say that I don't want to say that we have to win 8 games because we have 8 home games, but it's almost like you have to win 8 games at this point.
You need to win 8 games.
That's the only way I'm really going to be happy.
And I think that the way that it went last year, whenever you were coming off of a conference championship season, and it just really didn't look. I mean, you weren't all brand new guys. I mean, you had a new quarterback, but not a new quarterback, right? He had been he had some stuff, and they just didn't really perform at times when you wanted them to. There was a couple of games that got away with them, same way that Oklahoma had a few get away from them, where it was right down to the end. A couple of things would have changed the outcome, right? But I think the losing to West Virginia on the road, not good.
See, that was Blake Shapen was on pace to have a well over 500-yard game until he got smacked in the head. And ever since that play, it was downhill from there. Right. So we should have been 8-4 going into that Air Force game for the bowl game. Because we shouldn't have lost to West Virginia.
Playing Air Force then. That you wouldn't have been playing Air Force then.
Exactly. And we should not have freaking lost to TCU.
No. And I wasn't going to bring that one up, but since you did,
look,
come on, man. That guy runs in off the sideline and pounds it like it was nothing, So do you expect that from him? Probably not. But I mean, obviously, Sonny and them had practiced it to come in that exact same way, and the guy was comfortable. But it's still not something that we normally see, where those guys have to come in and have their little routine, and he didn't. So the fact that I think that game was lost earlier, in that there were some times that Baylor could have put that game away and didn't.
Blake threw an interception with under 2 minutes left.
Stupid. They shouldn't even have been throwing the ball there.
Exactly. You have Richard Reese, Quaylen Jones, Squirrel Williams.
If you're throwing the ball in that situation, it's not out of the backfield. You're throwing it at the line, right? It's silly stuff, man, right? Over under 7.5 for Baylor. Which is it? I'll let Kim ask the question. There it is. Over under. I'm going to take that's hard.
Yeah, I know. It's real tough. That's what I was saying. I'm not touching it.
I think that they should win 8. I really do think that they need to win 8. But I think they will? I'm not positive about it. I'm going to have to go under here, Kim.
Oh, man.
Oh, that's a good point, Hank. That's a good point too.
Also, I'll say what I think over here, and then we can go back on that TCU game. But I want to say Dave has weeded out some of the older guys in the secondary, which is still going to be a big question mark this year until we see them play. Probably going to be week 2 before we decide how we feel about that against Utah. I want to lean over just because with the team that we had last year, we should have won 8 games.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we have a better offense this year. Defense is going to be probably close to the same, if not slightly better. I don't think we got worse. I think it just looks bad to the casual people that see everybody hit the transfer portal. But I'm going to say over, but I'm going to leave it at 9 wins at the max. If we have the best season ever, we're probably winning 10 games, or we scrape by Utah somehow with 11.
Huh.
But
okay.
with the TCU,
Oh yeah, you guys have Utah this year, right? Yeah.
Yep. Week 2.
Wow.
But the thing with the TCU game is that they made substitutions, so the defense should be able to make substitutions. But in that situation, there's some kind of subtext, sublaw to where we couldn't do anything. And if we call a timeout, that's just going to give him more time to get ready for it.
Yeah, then you give him a normal kick at it. And it was a 30-yarder. We're not talking about a 50-yard bomb.
But there's nothing we could have done is what sucks. It's like just because of the rules at that time.
The new running clock thing would not have allowed that to end up like that, right? Without calling the timeout anyway. So it wouldn't have
exactly.
Right. No, I'm with you. I understand that. It doesn't change the fact. The only thing that I was saying about that whole deal was the fact that, look, it very easily could have went the other way in that game, but without the kick, right? I mean, they should not. Again, if you don't have a stupid turnover inside of 2 minutes, inside your own territory where you should be running the ball, or if you're throwing a pass, it's a screen or something.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? There's no way that you should be getting an interception in that situation. And part of that is also on Blake for not recognizing you can't make that throw.
I mean, Gary did it the same time last year, and that's why we lost. Because we let them drive down the field and score the last-second touchdown.
Right, and that really ended their chances to get in the playoff, because had you beaten Okie Light at that point, then you're in the playoff too. You know, either one of you guys would have went. So that's, hey, listen, I agree. I understand it. And when you talk about, if you want to talk about things with Dylan Gabriel that makes everybody pissed and you don't want to see it this year, is taking sacks on 3rd and 4th down. You cannot. There's situational stuff that you saw from him that you cannot have from a veteran quarterback, where you take a sack like that. You saw a lot of it in the Cheez-It Bowl. He takes a sack that you don't want to see him take. You know, you need to get rid of the football and, 2nd and 3rd and long to give yourself another opportunity, right? You can't do that, man. You just can't. You can't. But yeah, and TCU, to another thing, yes, any one of those games could have went the other way and changed the entire trajectory for TCU. I don't want everybody to just sit here and think that all of a sudden they're so great, because they weren't. They were this close to being trash. You know what I mean? They were
about 2 seconds away.
They were. And, give them credit for what they did, because they played really good. Who do you think with expansion will rise? Of the expansion teams, I think BYU is the best one right now, and Houston has the most potential.
Yeah, especially with the quarterback from Tech.
Yeah,
I think everybody.
Houston has the most potential moving forward. This season, I think they're at the bottom of the league. I think they suck.
Oh yeah, I mean, like if he gets,
I don't think that Dana gets to stay. I think that they got to fire Dana, and then they can move forward.
Yeah,
that's just my feelings on it. But
they'll have to figure something out.
Right. Adela, thanks so much for coming in. We appreciate that. We have gone a long ways. It's actually time for everybody to cut and go here. Adela, thank you so much for coming in. Folks, I appreciate everybody coming in, talking with us. Wasn't sure what all we were going to talk about. We ended up talking mostly about the same thing. but it spun off to some other things, so it was good. Want to thank my guy Logan here for sticking it out with me. His partner couldn't do it for whatever reason, but you held it down for Lonestar College Football coming in here, and you even talked a little bit about Texas and good stuff. Listen, tell everybody how to find you guys. You guys are back active again, headed into the season, only being about 88 days away. So let us know how to find you.
Yeah, so we had a lot of stuff going on as far as in both personal lives. I just got moved over to a new house. He has some other stuff going on, but we are getting back into the swing of things. You can find us at Lonestar_CFB on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. And we pretty much we're either talking to Jason, making pre-game videos, post-game videos, just Lone Star locks. If y'all are into the sports betting, it is legal in Oklahoma, right?
I believe it is. Yeah, I believe it is.
Okay, so we do Lone Star locks. We can't bet here in Texas because that's where both of us are at. But
it doesn't mean people don't bet in Texas.
Very true. A lot of people go to the border of Louisiana. I'm not one of them because I don't have the gas money to do all that. But I think I went like 72% last season as far as taking the over-unders on games.
That's solid.
And that's my first year looking at stuff like that.
That's very good.
We do a lot of stuff like that. We have Jason come on every once in a while. As you see, we're over here, and we just try to have a good time with you guys. College football.
Yeah. So, hey, man, I've enjoyed working with you guys. I was glad that, actually I met Logan. He was trashing me on Twitter. And then he decided to ask me if I wanted to come on the show. I was like, hell no, I don't want to go on your damn show.
And here we
Baylor and Texas.
So here we are.
We're enjoying each other's company. I appreciate it, guys, and always appreciate you guys coming on the show. I feel like going forward, and I know we hadn't talked a lot about it, but with this move that I'm making as well, we're building this new studio. I want to have you guys on at least once a week moving forward. And willing to help with you guys in any way possible. But everybody get over to at Lonestar_CFB on YouTube. Make sure that you are a subscriber to this channel. These guys have great content all week long. They're both putting it out there. They've grown a ton just in the time, but it's time for us to get them to 1,000 subscribers. It'd be great to do that before the season starts. Help them get there. Share it. Let everybody know all about it. Man, you guys are getting close, man. We're going to get you there, man. It's going to happen.
622 as of today.
All right. Yeah. I am now at 1,860. I want 2,500 by season start if possible, but we got to get to 2,000 first. So please make sure that you are sharing the stream with everybody. You can always, as we talked about before, and I didn't. I love this. We always do talk about some of this. You can always help us by hitting the subscriber button, hitting that like button. But we also have opportunities for you you can go through the Fanatics page and get, and these guys actually have been two of my bigger buyers on Fanatics were Logan and Christian. So appreciate that. You can always hit tips through Venmo, CASHAPP, or that super chat heart. And we even have merch in the merch store, like our Mediocrity in a Can Okie Light shirt that is up there right now.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah, we have the General Booty. We call it the 4-star booty stuff in there. Some of that stuff as well. Always got the horns down gear as well. But jump on there, take a look at some of that in the merch store. That helps us a bunch. The free way again is, guys, make sure you hit that like button, share this with as many people as you know that love college football. That's how, as creators, this is the way that we are able to really this is the way that we're really able to do this all the time, is to be able, the algorithm picks you up by the number of likes and the number of, interactions that you get on your stuff. So we appreciate that. If you do that part of it, just doing that. Thanks a lot, everybody, for coming into the show. We will definitely have more of Logan and Christian coming up in the future. Wanted to thank PG for coming in as well. It was a great time. Oh, yeah. And we will see. Hey, check me out tomorrow. I will be taking over the show for Mark Rogers. for the Oklahoma stream there on Voice of College Football. Make sure you check that out. It's at 12:30 Eastern time. PG is going to be on there with me to talk a little bit more about this OU stuff. Guys, we will see you on the next one. Hey, you guys all know the drill, right? Say it with me. Smash that red subscriber button. Like our videos. And don't forget to ring the notification bell so you don't miss one moment of the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. Hey, we even have amazing pod merchandise right here in our store. Hey, while you're here, don't forget to check out all these other amazing channels and subscribe to them too.